Webster defines crunch time as a critical moment or period, like the end of a game, when decisive action is needed. Every sports fan knows this time in the game. Your palms sweat just a little more, your heart races just a little bit faster, and you live and die with every play until the final seconds tick off the clock and you're either celebrating a victory or disappointed by the defeat. The team at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network understands just how critical these moments are. For us, it begins as soon as the next set of games are on the board. We evaluate the opening lines and any breaking news throughout the week. We cover each game inside and out, whether it's from inside the locker room to a huddle down on the field, the court, or the ice. We take you inside the meeting room with scouts, coaches, and executives. We have our fingers on the pulse of all the sports that we cover: the National Hockey League, NBA, college basketball, college football, and the National Football League. We are the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, and we're here to help you find your sports advantage. After all the data has been crunched, we then turn it over to Kenneth for the best analysis around. His unique perspective in both understanding the data and how it applies to the game and how you win is the Crunch Time Sports Advantage. Are you ready? The Crunch Time Jet is fueled and ready for takeoff, and the Crunch Time Express is about to leave the station. Your VIP pass has been approved, so all aboard.
Welcome into the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network Quarterfinals Wrap-Up Show. The college football playoff quarterfinals brought thrilling action, dominant performances, and dramatic finishes across 4 iconic venues. Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame emerged victorious, earning their spots in the semifinals. Here's a complete breakdown of the games. Ohio State delivered a stunning performance, avenging its regular season loss to top-ranked Oregon with a dominant 41-21 victory in the Rose Bowl. In the most dramatic game of the round, Texas overcame a furious Arizona State comeback to prevail 39-31 in double overtime. Penn State's defense stifled Heisman runner-up Ashton Jeanty and Boise State's offense, securing a 31-14 win and advancing to the Orange Bowl. And Notre Dame's defense and special teams led the way in a 23-10 victory over Georgia, sending the Irish to the semifinals for the first time in the playoff era. The semifinal matchups are set with 4 powerhouse programs vying for a spot in the national championship game. Notre Dame will take on Penn State on January 9th in the Orange Bowl, and Ohio State will battle Texas in the Cotton Bowl on January 10th. The quarterfinals showcased a mix of dominant performances and thrilling finishes, setting the stage for an exciting semifinal round. With momentum, grit, and championship dreams on the line, the playoff action is only heating up. And now let me welcome in our founder and senior analyst, Kenneth, for his final thoughts on this round of the college football playoffs.
Well, it's the Big Show. Yes, it's a big bad show tonight.
And Tina, fantastic job with the lead-in, getting that done on the fly. Tremendous job as always. Glad to have you a part of the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network family. And welcome into the Big Show wrap-up edition of the College Football Playoffs quarterfinal edition. And want to say, first of all, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone that was affected by that tremendous tragedy that we had that delayed the Sugar Bowl from yesterday to this afternoon. From all of us here at the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family if you were impacted in any way with that senseless tragedy. We're going to move on, but definitely want to get that off at the top of the show. Folks, let's not waste any time. We're not going to hold you for the entire hour. We're going to probably do somewhere between 25 minutes here on the pod. So let's just get into what we saw in these 4 matchups, because there's an old saying the cream rises to the top, and you're going to hear a lot of nonsense floating around about the college football playoffs and the formats. This is where the best teams in college football step up each time and really kind of dictate why they are advancing to the semifinals here on January 9th and 10th in the Cotton Bowl and Orange Bowl. Let's start with what we saw on Tuesday night there in the Fiesta Bowl as Penn State got off to a hot start. The one thing that Boise State could not have happen in that ball game, getting down 14-0 in that ball game, really cost this team. And when I look at the stats here, and folks, this is why I harp on these numbers each and every week. If you want to know who's going to win the game or who won the game, just simply look at these data points. Who was better on third down and who took care of the ball? Penn State was 5 for 13 in that ball game. Boise State was 8 for 16. But here's where the tail of the tape comes in. Penn State 1 turnover in that ball game. Boise had 4. And when you count the turnovers the way we count them, Boise State had 7 turnovers in that ball game. You missed the 2 field goals. You get a ridiculous penalty. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't the right penalty called at the end of the first half, but you get a penalty. You allow Penn State to kick that field goal going into the half, putting that game literally out of reach from that point. 17-7 going into the half. I told all of our clients, you can lock and load this ticket in because there is no way that Penn State is going to lose this ball game from here on out. Boise State scores 1 meaningless touchdown there in the third quarter, not enough to get it done. Want to say that going into this matchup, I said that you had to get a big game out of the quarterback, Matt Maddox Matson. Now, when we look at his numbers, 23 for 35, 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 INTs. I'm not going to harp on the final interception at the end of the ball game when you're literally just trying to make a play and you got to get it done. But that touchdown, the interception in the midway through, I think it was at the very beginning of the fourth quarter. That's correct. So at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, they have a fantastic drive going. 13 plays, only 39 yards, but they were moving. And then just a great play by the Penn State defender there. He gets the interception, stupid personal foul on Dennis Sutton there, and he had a couple of dumb personal fouls. You got to rein that in if you want to continue on. But when you look at their last 4 possessions, Boise State, interception, missed field goal, interception, and then an interception to close out the game. You're not going to get it done at this level when you're making that kind of mistakes. When we talk about Penn State, head coach James Franklin, I talked about the offensive and defensive coordinators in all 4 of these contests. Fantastic job there by Penn State and their defensive coordinator really getting it done in this matchup. Thought that Tom Allen just put on a master class in this ball game. How do you shut down a great running back? You do it by making sure that he is bottled up from the very get-go and not able to really kind of get going there. So I thought Andy Kownecki, the offensive coordinator for Penn State, did a wonderful job of calling this game. Got some big plays there from Omarion Evans, player that I highlighted on the Big Show. That big 38-yard pass play really opened things up. Tyler Warren, what can you say? One of the best players in college football. And then that ground game, that duo of Katron Allen and big time Nick Singleton, 29 carries, well over 200 combined yards. When you average that out, well over 7 yards per carry. Nick Singleton closed out the show with that 58-yard touchdown run to really just kind of say good night, drive home safely. Ashton Jeanty, fantastic collegiate career, ending his final game with 30 carries, 104 yards. Folks, he was bottled up from the word go. Did have that 26-yard run, but outside of that, really nothing. Maddox Matson, I gave out his stats. Like I said, the final interception, I'm not going to ding a quarterback for when you're trailing and you just got to go make a play. Hey, you're going to force an INT there, but the other 2 interceptions just absolutely costly. But missing that field goal on the first opening possession really set the tone there for Boise State, and that was pretty much the ice cream there for that ball game. So Boise State, fantastic season, but will not be moving on in the college football playoffs. Our next matchup, we're going to head to the Peach Bowl with the Texas Longhorns and the Arizona State Sun Devils. In this matchup, man, I'm telling you, Texas is fortunate to get out of this ball game, 38-24. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. Like I said, these numbers are legitimate. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong score there. Give me just a moment here as I'm clicking here. Yes, 39-31. Okay, so in the Peach Bowl, Texas fortunate to win that game in overtime. We'll talk about how that the end of regulation went. I'm going to highlight a couple of things here, but let's take a look at it. Texas 5 for 13 on third downs. Arizona State 10 for 24. Now, typically when you have 24 attempts on third downs, that is not a good recipe for getting a win. So it means that your offense really struggled on first and second down and really put you in some situations to where you had to go for it on longer distance on third down. As far as the fourth downs, I'm only mentioning this because it was key to Arizona State staying on the field. Texas was 2 for 2. Arizona State was 3 for 6. Once again, you're going for it on fourth down 6 times in a ball game. Your offense is really sputtering there. Both teams had a turnover. Okay, let's go ahead and get to it. So everybody wants to talk about the non-targeting call there at the end of regulation. Was it targeting? Sure. By the textbook and by every way that we've seen it called this season, it was targeting. However, if we go back and look at the tape, Cam Scatterboo on that long wheel route up the sideline that allowed Arizona State to tie up this ball game, he flat out pushed off. It was offensive pass interference. I saw it live. He completely extended his arm, pushed the Texas defender off. He's able to make the catch, and it wasn't called. If that pass interference, offensive pass interference is called, this game never gets to overtime, and Texas absolutely closes this thing out in regulation. Now, On the other side of the coin, Texas, you got a big problem with your special teams. I mean, a huge problem. We're looking at a kicker that misses 2 field goals there in Burt Auburn. He was more like Burnt Auburn trying to kick those field goals in this contest. That's going to be a problem for you as you try to advance coming up against Ohio State there in the Cotton Bowl. You're not going to beat them making these kind of mistakes. Another issue, 10 penalties in this ball game against Texas. Not good. Now, let's give some attaboys to a lot of players that did a lot of great things in this ball game for both teams. We'll start with Cam Scatterbo. Fantastic ball game. That kid was so sick early on in the ball game, literally on the sideline, throwing up uncontrollably. And fans actually want to think that they care more about the team winning than the players. Maybe some of the dumbest things I've ever heard said by people with microphones and Twitter keyboards. Okay, Cam Scatterbo had a 42-yard touchdown pass, 30 carries for 143 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And where I said he had to be a key, stepping up for Jordan Tyson, the missing wide receiver, 8 receptions, 99 yards. If you want to talk about a defensive coordinator that looked like he had no clue of what the heck he was doing, Pete Kowakowski, the defensive coordinator for Texas, you knew that this was a one-man show for Arizona State, and you allowed that one man to put up almost 300 yards of total offense against your defense when they had nobody else to turn to. That kind of foolishness is going to get you beat at some point. Let's talk about the quarterback, Sam Levitt. I thought that he played okay. 24 for 46, 222 yards, only 4.8 yards per attempt, 1 INT. Without Cam Scatterbo next year, we'll see what this offense looks like going into the offseason. But Arizona State's got a lot of work to do. As far as Texas, Quinn Ewers, 20 for 30, 322, 10.7 yards per attempt, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 INT. The run game, if I'm Texas, that performance was not good. 30 rushing attempts for 53 total yards. Their longest run was 7 yards against Arizona State. My goodness. Matt Golden, 7 catches, 149, 21 yards per catch, had the 54-yarder, had 1 touchdown. Outside of him, negatory Ghost Rider, the pattern was completely full. Gunnar Helm, 3 catches for 56 yards. Has anybody seen any other wide receiver that plays for the University of Texas? Gonna have to look for him on the Sky Cam when I go back and watch that starting tomorrow morning. But just a horrendous performance there. I talked about it. They was able to get a big play out of special team with Silas Bowden with the 75-yard punt return. But other than that, man, these special teams for Texas does not give me a lot of confidence. I'll say that. All right, moving on to our next matchup. and that was um, the slaughter in Pasadena. Want to say hello to one of my favorite Buckeye fans, and Amber. Amber, I know you guys, your family still um, mourning the loss of Mimi there. So always our thoughts and prayers are with you and your entire family as you guys got bigger things than college football to worry about. But with your Buckeyes this week in Pasadena, and when I look at this, folks, you want to talk about an offensive coordinator that was in his bag this week. Let me tell you, the last 8 quarters from Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator for Ohio State, I got no complaints with what I've seen in the last 8 quarters from Chip Kelly. I don't care that they didn't score a single point in the fourth quarter. Didn't need to. What they did was they played the opponent, which was the clock. Made sure that Oregon did not have enough opportunities to get back in this game. But you want to talk about an absolute boat race. This game was over before the butts could get warm in the seats. Chip Kelly, I'm gonna say it again. For the past 2 games, you have been locked in and dialed in, and you have called a masterful game over the past 2 ball games. Another guy that I'm gonna give a lot of credit to, and that is quarterback Will Howard. Um, the performance you put on in the first half, blazing out to a 34-8 lead in the half. Will Howard, nothing but kudos for you. Let me give the stats that I look at here. And once again, if you want to know who wins, who did the better job on third downs, and who took care of the ball. Now, neither team turned the ball over in this ball game, but Ohio State 4 for 11 on third downs. Oregon 8 of 19. Like I said, when you're having that many third down attempts, you're not making big chunk plays in this ball game. But the story of the game, Ohio State 181 yards rushing, Oregon negative 23. Wow. Okay, Will Howard. You got the criticism from me in some games early on in the season. You get nothing but praise here once again. 17 for 26, 319, 12.3 yards per attempt. Folks, that's what Jaden Daniels was putting up at LSU last year en route to a Heisman Trophy. Will Howard, beautiful job taking care of the ball. 3 touchdowns, no INTs. That's the way, if you want to win a national title, you play like that for 2 more games. We might be talking about that. The guy that I said had to be the straw that stirs the drink for Ohio State's offense absolutely did that. Travion Henderson, 8 carries, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, had the 66-yarder where, once again, when he gets in the open field, you better have somebody with some special speed to walk him down. Oregon did not have that. Quinshon Judkins, I'm not going to forget about your performance as well. 17 carries, 85 yards. But Travion Henderson is the straw that stirs this Ohio State drink on offense. And as long as Chip Kelly continues to use him the way that he's done in the past 2 games, this Ohio State team has an excellent chance there to do something really special this year. Jeremiah Smith, I said it, I meant it, and I'm here to represent it. He reminds me of Julio Jones coming out of high school when he went to Alabama. He was a grown, you know what, man from day one stepping on campus. And I haven't wanted to say it all regular season, but now that we're in the playoffs, that's who this kid is. He's Julio Jones 2.0. And God bless any defensive coordinator that's got a game plan against him, not only for the remainder of the playoffs, but for the next 2 years. This kid is going to absolutely punish your defensive backfield. Now, you want to talk about a stupid coverage? What the heck was Tosh Lapoy doing on that touchdown, on one of the touchdowns from Jeremiah Smith? We're going to leave the best player on Ohio State's offense wide open for I think it was a 45-yarder on that touchdown. There was not an Oregon Duck on the screen in that play. The one thing I'm not going to do is I'm going to leave this kid wide open for a touchdown. Dan Lanning, I want you to go sit in a corner and shut up. I don't want to hear a single word from you until spring ball starts, because this performance by you and your entire staff, the guy with the black card there in Oregon, Phil Knight, is not going to be happy with the performance that his money helped put on the field. We talk about what this Ohio State roster is. Folks, make no mistake, this Oregon Duck roster is not poverty struck from what they spend in NIL as well. I've also given two players a lot of grief on this defensive line for Ohio State, and rightfully so. Their play has deserved a lot of criticism. But in the playoffs, they're playing to their 5-star rating coming out of high school. The captain, Jack Sawyer, 2 tackles. Both of them for sacks, and had 3 pass breakups. Young man, a tip of the cap to you, Jack Sawyer, for the way that you've played in these last 2 ball games. Your running mate on the defensive line, JT Tuamolo, also with 2 sacks, also 3 tackles for loss, and also a pass breakup. Great job by both of you guys. Cody Simon was a man-child possessed in that ball game. 11 total tackles, 7 of them solo, 3 of them tackles for loss, also 2 sacks. That kid was playing out of his freaking mind. Look, you guys know what I think about Jim Knowles. One of the best 4 or 5 coordinators in college football right now. I knew that they were going to self-correct after what privately some people in that program said. They were embarrassed by their defense giving up over 30 points in Autzen Stadium. Boy, did they rectify that. Folks, 41-21, it wasn't even that close. 8 sacks in the ball game. That was phenomenal. The special teams, I'm not going to go without mentioning the special teams. Jaden Fielding, the kicker for Ohio State, 2 for 2, made that long 46-yard field goal. Fantastic job. And the punter. We often don't talk about punters, but punters are people too. And Joe McGuire, 5 punts, average 40 yards per punt return, per punt. Did have the 2 touchbacks. And usually you don't want your punter having touchbacks. Against Oregon, with those returners, I would rather for them to start on the 20-yard line than give them a low punt that's returnable, and then he takes it to the house. Oregon had 0 yards on punt returns. Fantastic job there by the special teams there for Ohio State. And that's why you're moving on to the semifinals. Nothing but kudos in this ball game for Ohio State. Dylan Gabriel, 29 for 41, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. Folks, most of that came in garbage time. Um, not a lot to say about this Oregon team in a positive way as far as this game goes. Hats off to you for a really good season, but absolutely got boat raced. And then in our final game that just wrapped up a couple of hours ago, and that was in the Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame 23-10. Let's give out the stats to watch here. And on third downs, we said that this was going to be a defensive struggle, and whoever took care of the ball would win. Folks, Notre Dame was 4 for 14 on third downs. Georgia, 2 for 12. Turnovers, Georgia 2, Notre Dame 0. I said this in a couple of group chats, and I sent off to a couple of friends. Once Notre Dame got that turnover at the end of the first half, and Mike Bobo, I've told you, is a coaching liability there for the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart, if you don't get rid of Bobo, it's going to be a big boo-boo for you, because you're not getting close to another national championship as long as he's your offensive coordinator. I said it, I meant it, here to represent it. Let's take a look at the stats here. We talked about the turnovers. We talked about third downs. I have been saying this since the very first game that Georgia played against Clemson back in week 1. This is the worst rushing attack for the Georgia Bulldogs I've seen in over 35 years. This team cannot bust a grape trying to run the ball. Don't believe me? Listen to these stats and tell me if this sounds like the Georgia Bulldogs team that you've seen since 1982. 29 carries for 62 yards, 2.1 yards per rushing attempt. Folks, I've seen Aston Genty get that on one single carry this year. This team cannot run the ball. Offensive line problems? Yes. Tailback problems? You bet your backside, yes. Wide receivers that can't catch? That's a whole nother story. Okay, let's talk about it, because I was asked, well, Gunnar Stockton provides Georgia with something that can get the run game going. My response to that statement was, we are not going to say foolish things. You play dumb games, you get dumb prizes. Let's take a look at Gunnar Stockton's stat line. Folks, this kid played about as well as he could possibly play, given who his offensive coordinator is and who his wide receivers are. He was 20 for 32, 234 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, no INTs. Now, this running back core that Georgia has, to call them below average is an insult to everything that has ever been below average in this planet. This is the worst wide receiving core I think I've seen at the Division I level. There's not one guy on this that played today that I would even offer a scholarship to. I know Arian Smith had the 1 catch for 67 yards, but folks, no team has seen more drop passes than Georgia this year. Man, okay, nothing. That defense for Georgia did not give up 23 points. Okay, thanks to the dumb decision not to run out the clock at the end of the half, cost Georgia 7 points. They gave up a kick return to start the second half. That's 14 points. I'm going to say that Georgia's defense gave up. See, you take those 14 away, Georgia defense gave up 9 points in this ball game. 9. That should have been enough to win this ball game. Raleigh Leonard for Notre Dame. To say that this kid is a liability as a passer is an insult to everything that's ever been a liability. 15 for 24, 90 yards total, 3.8 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, no INTs. How is anybody ever threatened by him throwing the ball is beyond me. I would have packed the line of scrimmage, like I said on the Big Show, and forced him to beat me throwing the ball. Anytime you give up 90 yards passing, Georgia, you're going to be kicking yourselves more than the play you gave up to Jalen Milroe in the Iron Bowl. I mean, I'm sorry. They're going to be kicking themselves like Auburn was in the Iron Bowl when they gave up that play. Georgia, look, you got problems on offense. Go find your coordinator. Raleigh Leonard did have 14 carries, 80 yards on the ground, did have that long 32-yard run. Other than that, the Notre Dame ground game could not get going. You take out that 32-yard run, Notre Dame had barely over 100 yards rushing on 36 rushing attempts. That was a masterclass by Auburn, and the defense, offense completely let them down. I would not want to be in that locker room if I'm an offensive player or coach. I would not want to be in that locker room. I got to look my defense in the eyes and say, I cost you a chance to play for a national championship or at least move on to the semifinals. Just a horrendous job there. So we got the matchup set here in the semifinals. You heard Tina talk about it. We have just, I think we have the right teams playing. We got the 4 best teams in college football playing left here. On Thursday, January the 9th at 6:30 p.m., coming to you live from Miami Gardens, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Folks, we've already gotten our spreads and everything ready for that game. If we had to do the podcast tomorrow, we're already ready. My fantastic team has been working nonstop since we got the Sugar Bowl delay since last night. And then Friday, January 10th, coming to you live from the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State versus Texas, 6:30 p.m. Both of those games will be on the mothership there, and we're ready to break both of those down. We're gonna right now set the Big Show to record on Tuesday and get that in your feed on Tuesday, so you'll have plenty of time to digest it. Only 2 games, so it won't be a 2-hour long extravaganza that we've been doing here for the college football playoffs. We're going to try to keep that to about an hour and a half. So I'm going to reel off a lot of great stats and information in that ball game, for both of those ball games, I should say. So we are set for the semifinals as Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas are moving on, and just a really interesting college football playoffs here as we're starting to figure out some things about the college football playoffs, and you better have an offensive line and you better have a defensive line and you better have coaches that can scheme up how to get things done. The 4 teams that are moving on, their coaches did a masterful job, and the players executed the game plan as well as can be done. So, congratulations to Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. And also want to give a tip of the hat for the 4 teams that lost: Boise State, Arizona State, Oregon, and Georgia. You guys had a tremendous season, but just came up a little bit short here in the college football playoffs. It's going to happen, and we know that this is kind of like the college football playoffs. You win, you advance; you lose, you go home. So, on behalf of our fantastic team, our newest addition, Tina, Jennifer, Jessica, Summer, we'll be back on Tuesday for the Big Show. Our senior handicapping analyst, the one and only Mr. Billy Joel, there for us. And this is Kenneth, the founder of this fantastic company. I get the pleasure of doing this each and every week with some of the best people in the world working behind the scenes to put all of this together for you. I'm truly honored and blessed to have such a fantastic team. And it is our pleasure to bring you the Big Show as far as college football. We got a special podcast coming on Friday with the first edition of the SEC conference call, where we break down the nation's best conference in college basketball as action kicks off on Saturday with all 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference in action. So be looking out for that in your feed very early on Friday as we get the lines for those games on Saturday. And as soon as we get the official lines, we'll have that in your feed. You can catch us on Spotify, on iTunes, Google Play, anywhere you listen to us on your podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube as well. Follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP. And of course, if you're looking to still make money with the college football playoffs or getting ready for college hoops, you can check out our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com for one of our fantastic packages. On behalf of my fantastic team, have a wonderful night. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the Big Show on Tuesday. And as always, God bless everybody.